for this week is found in John 14:27, and Jesus says, I am leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart, and the peace I give is the gift the world cannot give, so don't be troubled or afraid.
I remember last year I did a sermon on peace, and I talked about how when I used to smoke, I used to run around and get chaotic, and somehow a cigarette made everything better. And I remember those who used to smoke like me, former smokers, were in the crowd going, oh, I remember that. And then, of course, your mother sank in the ground. Those who still smoke are like, oh, I want to be called. But I wanted to go a different route. I wanted to go a different route because a lot's going on this time of the year, Christmas time, but then we had a tragedy. You know, peace. Peace is a very hard, very almost difficult feeling to describe. It really is. Because the definition of peace, according to Webster's dictionary, is one of the definitions is a state of mutual harmony between people or groups, especially in personal relations. And generally, a lot of time when we hear of peace, there's definitions that it's the absence of chaos, it's the absence of war, and it's always between people. But I think when Jesus is talking about peace, it's a gift that individuals can receive, that's independent from other groups, independent of what's going on around us. And what I do for a living, I shared here, I work with the mentally ill. And this is a very hard time because of what happened up in Connecticut. Mentally ill, and so a lot of my clients are people the stigma of that. And it's a depressing time of the year for a lot of people, not just those I work with, but any time. You can be without a job and not have any money, and it's depressing. It's very sad to go through that emotion during this time. And a lot of times when we're in those situations in our lives, when there's things that aren't going right, when there's chaos and we're out of control, we want to have control back, but more importantly, we want to have some peace. We want to just have peace. We want to be able to get through things. We want to be able to survive those things. And generally, a lot of times we start picking at straws to try to get that peace. Some people turn to drugs. Some people turn to alcohol. Some people turn to food. Some people turn to whatever. Whatever it is that you turn to try to find peace, generally, often enough, it doesn't lead to what you want. It doesn't fulfill anything. It doesn't fill the hole that's in your heart and your soul or whatever. It doesn't do that. And for some reason, I had a really hard time this week with coming up with peace. And I don't know where this came from, but it just, I kept thinking of the Wizard of Oz for some reason. I don't know why. But I kept thinking of the Wizard of Oz when Dorothy was trying to get out of Oz. And everyone kept saying, you got to go see the wizard. And of course she tags along with, a Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrow, and they get to the Wizard of Oz. And what do they see when they get there to see the great and powerful Oz? They see a green floating head with Spock ears. I am the great and powerful Oz. It scares them. And smoke going all around. And he tells them they got to go kill the Wicked Witch and bring back the broom. And so they go do that. And they come back, and the Oz wouldn't want to give them their prize. He still told them to leave. And then the dog goes and pulls back the curtain. And, well, that's just an illusion. Just an illusion. It was just some guy. It was... And for some reason, I think, well, sometimes that's what happens to us when we go try to find things that we think are going to give us peace. I talked about last year when I smoked, I think that's good. Well, that just gave me I could have got lung cancer. You get sick. Maybe for a split second I felt good, but then I had to go deal with the real world, and that cigarette didn't sustain me. Food doesn't sustain me. It didn't sustain me. Or whatever it was that I needed to try to find, it never sustained me. It was like the wizard. It wasn't what it appeared. I needed to find what peace, and where do I get peace? You see, in my belief, and what I've learned through this life, is that peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's the ability, it gets you through it. The peace that surpasses all understanding is that we can get through it. That we find hope when there is no hope. That's what peace provides for us. And so I thought, oh, that's great. That's okay. Now, how do I tie this all together in the Bible? And I started to think, well, certainly, Mary and Joseph, they had Jesus. You know, Steve read that Jesus was born in a time of turmoil. But certainly Mary and Joseph never went through any turmoil at all because, well, they had Jesus right here. They had Jesus at their disposal. The creator of the universe, Paul writes, was right there with them. At the whole time. Certainly they never went through a period of turmoil. Well, then all of a sudden I was led to the part of the Bible, Luke 2:41 through 52, is where we find Jesus teaching at the temple. Remember that? Jewish tradition, you take your child of age to the temple, and that's where they brought Jesus to the temple. Generally he was 12 years old, about that. And he's at the temple, and then, well, it's time to leave. Well, then Mary and Joseph, they're out with the crowd of people, they're walking home, and 3 days later, well, Jesus is nowhere to be found. Now, first off, now how many of us parents would know that our kids are gone for 30 minutes, 3 minutes, let alone 3 days, but they thought Jesus was with everyone, and come to find out I would feel terrible. Now, I don't think in a moment when we don't have our children that there's any peace. I would think that it's a very non-peaceful time. It's chaos and turmoil, and the Bible says that Mary was frantic. She was frantic. Verse 48. His parents did not know what to think. Son, his mother said to him, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been frantic, searching for you everywhere. A lot of times, how many of us have been frantic, searching for Jesus? Oh, please, Jesus, help me out. I need help. I need help. Or whatever. How many of us have been frantic? We want that peace, and it just doesn't seem to come. Where are the answers at, God? We've all been there. Nothing seems to come around. We want it right now. And Jesus answered Mary, and he says, but why do you need to search? He asked, did you know that I must be in my Father's house? Why did you need to search? You see, a lot of times, when our kids get older, I'm having a hard time. I have an 18-year-old. Those of you who've been through it before know what I'm talking about. When you got to let, for example, I gave my son $50. And he's a good kid, he really is, but I gave him $50. I said, listen, here's $50 to go. He was going out with his buddies, and I said, to shop Christmas. A bunch of guys shopping. I didn't understand that. Usually it's my daughter, but we're going to go to the mall, we're going to shop at Muncie, and I said, well, here's $50. Now, I immediately said to my 18-year-old son, buy what you need. Buy what you need, son. You got to buy what you need. Now, he needs clothes and shirts and all that stuff, and he's like me, $50, I can have a whole wardrobe. But he was talking before that, I'm going to buy this $30, $40 hat. Well, you don't need a hat. You have 45 other hats. I mean, the kid's got a hat for almost every day of the year. You need clothes. But then I had to pull back and go, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to give him the money. If he comes to me next week, he says he needs pants, and he spends all that money on a hat. Hey, you got money for it? So I have to pull back a little bit, right? And let them make mistakes. It's hard when it's your children. Jesus, I think, allows us to do that as well. I don't know about you, maybe it's just me, but there have been plenty of times in my life where I hear that little voice say, just give it all to me. So what do? Okay, you can have it, grab onto that. You can have it. And I try to pull back. And what does Jesus do? Okay, you can have it. You can have it. And then I keep going up again. Here. When it gets tough, I got to take it for it. Finally, when I'm exhausted, here, just take it. I don't want it anymore. And then I realize, well, everything is usually better that way. It's better when he has it instead of me. Why do I need to search for peace? Let's go to Jesus and let him take care of everything. I frantically have searched for Jesus. We've all been there. We've all frantically have searched for him. We don't understand why things have happened in our lives, and we want answers, and we want them not now, we want them before. If we just give everything to God, everything will fall into place. I promise. It's happened for me. It will fall into place. Romans 8:6 proves this point. Paul writes, so letting your sinful nature control your mind leads to death. But letting the Spirit control your minds leads to life and peace. when I go to Jesus and I give Him everything, I need to give Him everything. I don't need to control certain things in my life because, I've always led myself into situations that lead to death. Lead to death. It is not fun to feel like, I've dug myself another hole, I got to try to get out of it, and going to Jesus and help me out once again. But I've been there many, many times. My actions have led to death, and when in reality I've only wanted peace. There's not a person in this room, I can honestly say there's not a person in this room, there's not a person on this planet, if you ask deeply and honestly, what do you want out of life? Yeah, we may say, I want to go do this, I want to experience this, but the reality of it all is we all just want peace. We want that. And peace is not the absence of chaos, it's the time when we can realize that there's hope when everything seems hopeless. That's what peace is all about. We've seen those people. We've met those people who have been through unimaginable things. People who've lost children. And they get through it. And I've talked to many of them in my life, and all they see is Jesus has gotten me through it. It's amazing. The peace of God gets them through anything. Isaiah 9:16, read it earlier. For God is born to us, for a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on His shoulders, and He will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. If you have peace, everyone will see it. It doesn't mean your life is perfect. It doesn't mean that you're going through perfect times. It just means that you are getting through tough times, times of turmoil. That's when you see peace the most, is when somebody's going through the toughest times of their life. It's easy to see when people are happy. Peace and happiness aren't always the same. So let's remember this time of the year that our wait for peace is over. If you're searching for that and you haven't found it yet, it is in only one thing, and that's Jesus Christ. And I shouldn't say thing like it's an intangible object. Jesus is real. You can only find peace in Jesus. You cannot and will not ever find it anyplace else. Go search. We'll be here waiting. You'll come back. It's only in Jesus. So let's remember that during this time of the year that we can carry our peace, not just Christmas time and Easter, but each and every day of our lives. And we can get through anything because He is the one that gives us that gift. Let us pray.